This episode is made possible by listeners like you. Your support means everything. Thank you for tuning in. On this episode of the podcast, he really wants to live up to the legacy. Roll credits. Knock the block, literally knock off the block of Black Star, right? And yeah, that happened. You're not gonna want to miss this one.
Prepare for warp speed as we embark on a voyage through the vast expanse of science fiction in movies and television series. From distant planets to alien civilizations, we delve into the heart of the unknown, unraveling the tales that have captivated audiences for generations. Get ready to unlock the secrets of the universe on Code Flix.
Greetings, fellow sci-fi and fantasy lovers. Welcome to Code Flix, where we explore the TV shows and movies that shape our imaginations. I'm Andre Bonner, and in today's episode, we'll be exploring power, family, and the burden of heroism in the series Jupiter's Legacy. Let's follow a family of superheroes trying to navigate our extraordinary abilities while still holding things together as a normal family. Over the course of the series, we're treated to flashbacks that show how 6 individuals gain their powers, each origin story adding another layer to the mystery. One of the biggest twists comes right at the end. The main villain of the series is revealed to be the brother of the lead superhero, a reveal that completely reframes everything that came before it. Unfortunately, the series was cancelled for the usual reasons, just as it was hitting its stride. But the story isn't entirely over. There are plans to continue this universe through spin-off comics, keeping the world and its characters alive in a new way. These are my personal insights and interpretations of Jupiter's Legacy. So the series, it has 2 main timelines that occur over each episode. So we get a past, which is the 1930s. So this story encompasses the first generation of the superheroes and how they would have gained the powers that they currently have, right? And it happened around the Great Depression, if you know anything about US history, right? And then the other timeline is the present, of course, and this is where we're seeing how these superheroes, their children, are struggling under the moral choices. There's a code, and because of the way how the world has changed since the inception of the superheroes and the union, which is what the superheroes them call themselves. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the deep dive of the episodes, starting off with episode 1, By Dawn's Early Light. So we basically get an idea of the struggle that is raging between the the younger supers and the older supers, right? The utopian is the one that is leading the union, and him have the strict moral code, right? No killing and no ruling, right? Them should never hold power or office as superheroes. Now, a situation arises where his son Brandon, who apparently has similar powers to him, but is unable to fend off, an attack from a, you call it like a medium-sized villain, right? With superpowers, a super villain with superpowers. And he was unable to do that in the initial stage. So I'm kind of feel doubtful of himself and stuff. So, it sets up the whole thing, right? Later on down in the episode, they are confronted by a bad super, one of them, high level super villains, right? His name is Black Star. And, if you can visualize this big Hulkian figure that basically is beating all of the supers, including the Utopian, who's like the strongest and fastest and all of this and thing, and beating everybody to a pulp, right? Now, Brandon, who, as I mentioned, is the son now, you can see that he is trying to keep things in line, and he really wants to live up to the legacy. Roll credits, name of the show, right? So he wants to live up to that legacy that his father, the Utopian, has carved out for everybody, right? With the moral code and thing. However, in this situation where you see everybody basically them facing at the dirt, everybody basically look like they're about to be pulverized totally out of existence. So Brandon decides, say, the code no matter right now is just my family, my friends, right? Because many of the other supers are basically like, family or extended family, but they act like friends, the kids. So it's almost like having a cousin that has super speed and, another one that has psionic abilities and all of that. Anyways, yeah, him knock the block, literally knock off the block of Black Star, right? And I'm trying to keep this as PG as possible, but maybe I might can't keep it. But I'm telling you, it was a horrific scene. And of course, him father rebuked him about it and thing right then and there. Tell him, say, yo, there is a dozen of things you could have done. You could have whip out some attack, you could have done something, but do not kill, right? Which is the code. You went against the code. So him grown him son, of course, and thing. Now, we get, as I said, the other part of the story, which is the past, the 1930s. So we get a flashback where we see Sheldon, who is the utopian in the present. He doesn't have any powers, of course, at that time. Right? This is before he got powers. And basically, his father owns a business, and that business came crashing down because of some choices that people make in the Great Depression. And yeah, so, and of course, there's a reason why it's called the Great Depression. There's a whole lot of, unaliving of themselves and not necessarily other people. And his father was one of them, right? So, yeah, his father, right in front of time to, his father do it. And that, of course, that would mess up anybody, right? But what is so significant about this now is that him start to receive some weird visions of him father. And I'm talking about some wicked stuff. I mean, if you watch the series already, or if you even watch this episode, you're gonna be like, you could have warned us, but I'm telling you right here, from now, I warn you about the visuals. It's not pretty, right? And he's having those visions and stuff, which is basically urging him to travel to this place to get some stuff. And there's one bag of code and thing. Yeah. Episode 2, Paper and Stone. So Sheldon and his brother, they have not had like the best of relationships, right? And when the father died, of course, Walter, he basically took on the mantle, to make sure, say, everything happen good for the business and all of that. And I guess it takes a toll on him, right? Because of course Sheldon can't help him at that point, right? Because Sheldon have, you know, some misgivings, and then now them I hear say from Grace Kennedy, right? Not Grace Kennedy as in the corporation, okay? The name of the utopian's wife in the future, right? In the present, actually, is Grace Kennedy, right? And at that time, she's a reporter and, investigative journalism, right? Shout out to them who do those kind of things. You know what I'm saying? It's a really, you know, awesome job, right? You make things clear, you open up things. But anyways, Grace Kennedy, she find out, say, him father, who he has not known anything about really to this point, right, was embezzling, right? He stole from his own employees, right? So he was not a good man, right? Including one of the workers who's a black man, named Fitzsmall, who would be a part of that superhero team, right? So yeah, you know, at him father funeral, Sheldon get hospitalized because the visions and things start to happen to him, cause him to have one massive seizure, right? Yeah. Now, the present, right? And of course, this doesn't happen in order, so it's all over the place. Right? It jumps between the present and the past at times, right? In flashback ways, right? So, of course, Brandon, who has violated the code, he basically get the chewed out and thing. Sheldon, he might try to get the younger super them now for talk to the public and let them know, say, hey, we are very horrified by the decision that this brother I make, Brandon make. And so, whatever. It's almost like, we want to say, it still hold, the moral code, the code that still holds relevance now, right? Because there's a lot of people, like how you go on social media and things happen sometimes, and this particular thing happen, and some people are saying yes, a long time it happened, and then some people say no, it's not supposed to happen, man. There are, so that is what's kind of happening here, where there are people who are supporting the fact, say, hey, Brandon, as the utopian son, really kicked the hell out of, Black Star. I mean, thump out him face. But anyways, you have people who are saying, hey, even though Black Star bad, he's a villain, him never deserve for dead, And when I'm talking about Black Star here, I must make it clear. In the series, it is actually his clone, right? So Black Star is one of the supervillains that was imprisoned and is in prison same way. But apparently that there's a clone, and that clone is the one that, got killed. Right. So but for people who support, probably Black Star, against the superheroes, even though, it's them can't figure out that neither, because they weren't, that's the supers now, right? So the supers weren't able to figure out why Black Star was cloned. So this was a mystery now that has, been revealed through this, because probably if Brandon didn't do what he did, they wouldn't be able to probe his mind and, be able to check the prison. Yeah, they probably could. Yeah, they check the prison and find, say, Black Star in there, but they were wondering why is he out here, right? But would they check it if them didn't know, right? So yeah, some serious stuff happening there, right? So it's a whole shebang. We get to meet a few other of the super family and the other, I don't want to say like sidekick heroes, but like the other heroes, superheroes who have, powers and stuff. And yeah, Fitzmaul, who I mentioned before, the black guy, he is there working alongside them and stuff, but he's working from a wheelchair, which I found very interesting, right? Yeah. Episode 3, Painting the Clouds with Sunshine. So, in the present, a gang of thieves who are indebted to a supervillain named Mr. Big or Big Man, right, perform a series of heists, right? So, there's one of them that he is the son of one of the superheroes named Skyfox. And up to this point, we basically get to understand that Skyfox is one of the original supers. He is a villain now, right? Now, at this point, I didn't know who Skyfox is, right? Now, it was very, very interesting to find out that he was one of Sheldon's friends, right? Yeah. So one of the young supers, that's Chloe, that's Brandon's sister, right? She doesn't she don't want to have nothing to do with the family really and stuff and the code and all that, right? Because it's probably teenage angst, probably is just rebellion against our family and so on. But yeah, and she's very powerful, right? So in a drunken stupor, she accidentally stops the same robbery that the thieves them are going with, and she take them loot. And apparently, among the loot was drugs, right? Which she's pretty much into, right? And you might be wondering, why would a superhero, daughter of a superhero that is, because she doesn't want to be a superhero, take drugs? And what the effects of that could be? That's an interesting thing. So, Hutch is the leader, and he is the son of Skyfox, as I mentioned before. He ends up finding a way out of that whole thing with Big Man by unaliving Big Man, right? Which in essence save him, right? And him friend them, right? Them able to use Big Man resource now to retrieve one powerful weapon, right? Yeah. So that is something interesting right there. Episode 4. All the devils are here. So in the present, Chloe, as I mentioned before, she's a super and she has a modeling career, right? And she was fired basically from an endorsement because of her temper, right? She had a temper on her, and she took a vehicle and that they had there, and she was modeling on all along, and she took the vehicle and she basically turned it over upon its head. Cause she have superpowers and everything there. Yeah, she could have done a lot more damage and stuff, she's also, under some heavy, heavy, outings because most of our friends were the ones that were killed, our former friends, that is, by Black Star before, and she basically a reel from that loss, because, emotions are high and everything. And so she slips further into some addictive behavior and can't stop partying. Yeah. I mean, there's even this one part scene where she hooks up with a well, I guess someone with superpowers, basically, because he's not a superhero yet. Because him actually want to get into I guess they have like a school or a training academy for superheroes. And because him know says she, is utopian daughter, him basically get close to her in order so him can just ask her, if she can just put in a word to her father, like, oh, she and him not boots that one time. Like, I mean, seriously, bro, what was he expecting, right? Not very nice, right? And when she find out and realize, yeah, that him a do, she dealt with him really harshly. she didn't play around, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, wall fly off and all sort of thing. Yeah. Him not that strong. I think the only thing him have as a power is like him can freeze time or slow it down or something to that effect. Yeah. This brother is crazy. If he really thought that him could I get one over, Alright, so in the past, Sheldon abandons him fiance because him fiance, all along, the man come up, but after him start have all of these things happening to him and thing, and she kinda, and you have to be fair, right? She took herself away a little bit because she said, yo, but I know how to deal, I don't know how to handle, the situation that him a face, right? And, Judge, who turns out to be Skyfox, right? He is the one that basically has been, encouraging him, right, through all of this. Him not really believe everything we must say, but he's like, yo, you're my brethren. I'm gonna stick by you. If you say is a fly, is a fly. If you say is a dog, is a dog. And so he basically, just allow him to basically do what he have to do. So Sheldon went off on this escapade basically to a small town in Kansas. And of course, the town is, after the depression, a whole heap of, places just look very out of touch and people are fight for food and all sort of thing. That, that is what it is. And, we really don't want that again, although we see some things happening in reality that might happen, But hey, just hoping for the best, right? So, we can see that even through this experience, because there's this one scene where he basically tried to rescue someone that was being beaten, like somebody that kicked the crap out of the other person and thing, and he's like, him jumping and then him get himself beaten too, he can't defend himself, he hardly can even fight, right? At this point. So, after that, and on the ground, one girl approached him and she said something to him and he's like, you know about this place and thing? And she's like, yeah, me know about the place where you talk about, based on where I describe it to her. One old mill, they down there, so. And he's like, okay. That him go there and thing. So, him go there and him see one old man. The old man there seemed to have some serious problem because he must suffer from the similar visions, right? Because he can describe to Sheldon word for word some of the things where he has been hearing from him visions of him father, right, and thing. So before the man kill himself, yeah, the man kill himself, him tell Sheldon say, yo, don't listen to him, right? Being him father, basically, kind of tell him, right? Don't listen to them because, Ray. So that they, you know, ended up afterwards, checking the place and thing, and him realized there's a basement basically. And then go into the basement, and when we encounter in the basement, make him even more manic because him see everybody who him know, the CN reporter girl who's gonna become his wife, George, him Virgin, him brother, Walter, the black guy Fitz, and somebody else who really don't really know that person yet in this particular sequence yet, right? Yeah. Episode 5. What's the use? So Sheldon experienced doubts about his approach in enforcing the code, right? Because apparently, if you can't keep your house in order, if you cannot convince people around you, right? Your wife not really get this thing, your son has committed, against, the code. Your daughter don't want to have nothing to do with you because you just depend in her ears and then like say code, moral code, and nothing no change that because you basically it's like a brick wall. That's what one of the characters referred to him as. It's like, yo, talking to a brick wall, you that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So some evidence come to light, right? Because of course them bring in some other supers and stuff and thing, and there, it's revealed that Blackstar's clone may have been created by George, and them know George is brilliant and thing. His superpowers, him can do a whole heap of different stuff. Him can fly like everybody else. Him have incredible strength and him can, tinker with stuff, right? It's almost like him can create stuff and thing. Ingenuity is off the charts with him. So apparently he had a disagreement with the moral code too, right? The same code where Sheldon try for keep. And it is because of that disagreement that is why him go rogue, right? Now, the funniest thing is that Hutch being George's son, and their greatest nemesis of the Union, and Chloe being the daughter of the Union, basically of the Union's leader, the two of them hook up. Yeah, they hook up. We'll be right back after these messages. They taught us that power comes with responsibility, but they never told us how heavy that responsibility would feel. This podcast isn't built for profit or applause. It exists because stories matter, because ideals still matter, even when the world moves on without them. If you believe there's value in reflection, in questioning what we inherit and what we pass on, then help carry it forward. Share it with someone who understands legacy. Leave a comment so I know the next generation is listening. Every listen, every follow, every share, it's not just support. It's a handoff because the future doesn't belong to the loudest voices. It belongs to those willing to stand for something. And Sheldon, because they realized, boy, George and thing, Sheldon approach Hutch, right? And the coolest thing is that Hutch has this power, right? He has this stick that basically can talk to it and tell it where he want to go, right? And it will teleport him there instantly, right? That's how he killed he killed the big man and killed some other people with it and thing because him can one of them grab him stick from him one night time and him send them into shark infested waters. Him to tell it say if go to shark infested waters with the person and yeah, because they thought that taking the stick would, take away his power over the stick. But they were wrong. Anyways, I just mentioned that to say that he was trying to use that now to escape from Sheldon. Can you see Sheldon I come now and he try to escape from Sheldon, but of course because he's the fastest man, right? He can reach him real quick and he reach real quick, catch up with him. So of course what that meant was that, he just have to just tell him what happened and thing and he must say, yo, anything me tell the sticky would, carry me go and thing and I even tried to tell it to carry me to my father because, but it always carry me to this bar, one stripper bar basically, and him demonstrate, because it was they went to the stripper bar and thing, and him said this, him says a random bar every time, so it not really listen to me. So basically, George doesn't want to be found, not even by his son. Yeah. Now in the past, Sheldon, of course, is emboldened by visions, him convince Walter, George, Grace, Fitz, and a couple other people to join him to go to the island in 1933, right? This island, and basically come and him tell all of them. And I mean, when he was talking to Fitz, right, him go in and Fitz's father, because Fitz's father work at the same place and things. So he would have been the one who lost because of Sheldon's father. And then basically he's like, yo, go with him, go with Sheldon, because there's nothing really for you here now. So might as well you go. Right? And the man's like, you serious? But for really go with him after all what him do, after what him father do? And he's like, yeah, but him father might do that, but him son no must be that kind of person, you know what I'm saying? So in this moment it seems like he's giving him a second chance, even though Sheldon no really have nothing to do with it, but he's because of association, guilt by association. So, there's a message in there. I'm not the one to explain it, but you know what I mean. So they have all been convinced eventually to go, right? Don't ask how they convince Walter, cause like Walter case different. You know what I'm saying? It's like Walter is like, yo, why you have to involve me in it, right? And then, Grace, of course, barely know them and thing, but yeah, how he convince the rest of the person then for go to the island with him, I never understood. Episode 6, Cover Her Face. So, of course, Brandon has struggled with the morality of his actions because essentially he was basically put grounded, right? They have a little farm and thing, and there's so many parallels to Superman here, but I'm not gonna talk about it here. But basically, they on the farm and thing, one of his friends come visit him, right? Because she named Ghost Beam, right? But I don't remember her real name, the name that she goes under in it. But Ghost Beam come and she da talk to him and she have like misgivings and thing and him a try to encourage her. Yeah? Him encourage her, and say, bam, bam, bam. And, look after that, she goes away. Now, them get called to a thing there, an encounter with a supervillain, Barry and him name. Grace go to the place and thing, and when she see Ghost Beam, she was already done for. And so that enraged her, and Grace never take no talk. The way she should have beat Berian, you think say, should have killed him. And I actually thought so for like a second when time she came out to the police officers that were surrounding the building, and they're like, thing there, because she just call out and say, get one paramedic and a coroner. So you don't know who is alive and who is dead. You know what I'm saying at that point, but you kind of figure say, that girl, the Ghost Beam never really recover. But then it later reveals say Ghost Beam bite it and Varian is still alive. She half beat him to death still, right? As we would say in Jamaica. So yeah, that had a great impact on the young supers them again, because Fitz's daughter, she comes to Brandon and basically like, after all of this, me for really stay, may I leave the union? And me just tell you because me just want to tell you, right? And him encourage her. Him encourage her to stay. Right? That's Brandon again. Because the first time when Ghost Beam came to him, it was her kind of, giving him a little bit more encouragement. But this time, it was him giving the encouragement. Yeah. Then in the past, now, Sheldon's insanity, that's a word I'm looking for, comes into question because everybody is on the boat, right, heading to the island now. And everybody can clearly see him and hear him chatting out loud to himself. Well, him not talk to himself, he not talk to him father, Duppy, right? As I mentioned before. If I haven't said that before, right? But everybody's like, why am I talk to himself? Just see him carry on a conversation with himself. Now, even to get there, is perilous, right? And they come upon because, they knew that there was gonna be some kind of storm and thing based on how the weather pattern change and thing. And Sheldon never tell them nothing about that, right? And so everybody's like, yo, wow, turn back right now. Sheldon said, no way, Jose. On a turn back this ship here because we have to get there and thing. And same time when him attack them that way, he's being attacked by the Duppy and father. Basically, just they pan him back, just tell him say, don't listen to them. But they tell us, say, you know, if I involve them people, because them no nothing, and re. So, Sheldon, of course, would have been doubting. Can you imagine the whole time people are doubt you, but you know what your experience are, because of what your experience, you're encouraged or motivated, but at the same time, you kind of feel like you wish there was a way for people to understand the situation. Now, Richard Conrad is the other super and the guy who he is looking for, right? Because up to this point, he did have everybody else and he needed one more person. He did tell everybody, say, I need one more person. And them say, so who is that? And he's like, I don't know, but I'll see them and know them. Basically, I will know when I see them. And Richard Conrad was a person because apparently him ship get shipwrecked and he basically, them rescuing him him find out, right? And as the storm get worse and thing, everything come to a head. The stress levels were high in this moment. But then, right when them said them are gonna turn back the ship turns towards a side, and then all of a sudden, storm clear up. There's no storm clouds in the sky, but then in the distance, you see an island, and then everybody is in belief now because it's like, what? He was talking about an island all along, and now see, there's an actual island over there, right? So yeah, episode 7, Omnes Pro Uno. Now, Grace and Sheldon basically have a big debate or an argument, right? Where Grace basically has said, I really don't agree with you having to hold on to this code thing, the moral code thing. So they want to figure out some more things about the attack from Black Star, because them feel like it is, pivotal to figure out. So basically, she convinced Sheldon to recruit Walter's daughter, right? Now, as I said before, Walter is a psionic. Yeah, him have psionic abilities and things. Can fly, and him can use him mind, right? Him can project himself into somebody's mind, and him can use his mind to paralyze people and all those things. Now, his daughter made a decision at some point to not be a part of the Union and become an assassin for hire. So while she had a mission basically, and she telepathically on the mission, because she's like in her apartment, and that's where she really is, and she is on mission in, must it China or Japan, is it? I remember one of the Asian country there. And my lady basically is like, you got to pay me, You got to pay me. Yeah, we have family and all, but $1 million a day, you know what I'm saying? So, of course, because they really want to get her, of course, him have to say yes, right? To get her to come, right? Because she can assist Walter, because the thinking is that because Walter is having trouble with probing Black Star's mind. Remember, I know, him missing part-time head. That is one thing. And he is dead. And they need Fitz who can power anything with him powers, right? So power in the body basically. And but they still need someone to be able to go into the mind and be able to keep, the mind active, basically. So basically she's there to help and stuff, and she get warned off by Grace, because Grace is like, Grace have the power to detect when someone can tell a lie or a truth, right? So if them deceitful, so she basically there for those kind of just make sure I say, oh, she now use this as an, for her goal and thing. Now Walter enters the mind of Black Star, and when him going to the mind, oh, before that, I should mention, he went to the real Black Star in the prison, right? And he basically threatened Black Star, right? And tell him, say, yo, we're gonna find out how you did this and all of that, right? Basically blaming Black Star, right? Then when they, him going the clone of Black Star mind now, we see George in there. Yeah. We see George. Of course, Sheldon is worried about dissension among the superheroes and things. So while all of this are going on and things still are going same way. And him really believes, say, if them abandon the code, it'll go just lead to this brutal authoritarianism because people are going to basically fear the might of the superheroes and thing, you know. Now, in the past, the team that Sheldon is leading, they go to the island and the island throw all sort of different tests and, you know, challenges to them and thing, right? One point them a walk through a jungle. The next point them find themselves near a next point them find themselves near desert, right? And they basically try to figure out things, right? Then them find themselves in a place where they get to realize that other human beings have made it to the island before, but they passed away. From what? They didn't realize that it was because they were fighting one another. Yeah, them get to realize that them are fight one another. So they had to put that aside. They had to learn to put their differences aside. And that's how they were able to get out of those things, right? Grace was the one that realized, that test was testing whether they were able to put things aside. So they end up go through this hole in the wall, basically, and it's light. It's a wall of light, basically. So they walk into it and them come out. When they come out, they're near Jupiter. Hence the name of the series. Roll credits again. And so they walk to this thing in the middle of this open area, basically, and when they walk up to it, you can see all of the lights and colors and stuff and thing. And first, we see Sheldon seeing him Father Duppy again, but this time the Father Duppy don't look as horrific, right? But then Walter is able to see the Father Duppy too. And everybody there is able to see someone who they would have lost or cared for, right? So all of them. And the Duppy then basically tell them, you are worthy, right? And essentially this is where they given their superpowers, because the next thing we see is the captain where they carry them to the location. He sees the island basically going nuclear in a particular way, and there's this wave. And then when the wave done, everybody on the ship get a little dose of this thing like as radiation. And you can see on their skin the markings, the same crude code and symbols that Sheldon has been seeing from the beginning, right? And the man them look up in the air, when them looking at the air, them see the superheroes them are come, right? All of them. Yeah. So that is where it was, right? Episode 8. All with all hands. Now, the real Black Star find a way to escape from his cell. Suddenly, his cell was locked and then it was no more. And he was able to walk right out of it, right? Of course, them calling the supers, them, Utopian and Brandon, go there. When Brandon reach, in father said to him, say, don't engage Black Star. Of course, when Brandon sees Black Star, he engage Black Star, right? Of course, don't listen, right? Kids don't listen. And this now forced Sheldon now to choose between upholding the code or saving his son, because Black Star, they taunt him and I say, yo, what you gonna do? You gonna uphold the code or you're gonna just take me out with your eyes, them kind of, the same kind of powers like Superman, same of the I-beam thing, right? And I tell you, for a moment there, he could have done it, right? Of course, the MacGuffin, right, happens, something happens, and he's able to save his son. Sheldon look like say mood and knock Black Star to pieces again and splatter him brain matter all over the place. But him stop and him set him, basically I look at him father like him and say, yeah, I think me that go do it though. See me not do it. And him father is like looking a little bit proud, but at the same time him's like him conflicted, him I wonder, because he was in a position where he could have lost his son and he would have been holding him cold, but he could have lost his son. Now we see where Walter is trapped in Black Star's clone mine, right? And George basically beated him to a pulp and thing in there and stuff. But then before George can kill Walter, Grace joined the fight in there, right? She come in, right? After they tell her one, I say, not for go in there and thing because she could get stuck. She joins them anyway, right? And she save him. And when him escape now, she ask him what the judge tell him because what judge did hold him on a time and basically, tell him say, to see something and thing and Walter did never want to tell her and thing. But then him reluctantly, seemingly, I would say at this point, tells her what he saw. Now, at the very end of the episode, we see where Walter confront Raiko, his daughter, right? And of course, we think, say, boy, this is some kind of catching up chat because a long time we see one another and thing. But then it turns into something different because she says she knows that he is secret basically, and she will keep his secret if he will PR couple millions more than where him supposed to appear. You know what I'm saying? Because she know that him create Black Star clone and let the real Black Star loose. And then, out of nowhere, the man kill him daughter. I'm daughter, you know? But then I think about the conversation that I had before at the start, where she said to him that you don't know if to communicate, you don't talk to my mother, and that's why she, couldn't tell you. And then it just seemed to me like he does not care about people. And so that's why he was able to do this. Yeah. So at the same time, he's having a conversation with the Utopian, with Sheldon. And basically we can see where he has been manipulating his own brother, right? And there is more damage to come, basically, right? So he's the root, because on that point where he had a conversation earlier on in the series with Brandon, basically, and even though it seemed innocent at the time, no, you can see that it has a sinister undertone because of what was planned. So, that's my analysis and interpretations of this series. Here are some theories about unresolved mysteries and plot points. So, two major questions that linger in the mind at the end of this, and I would not have done my due diligence in not asking these questions. How long has this island been inviting humans by haunting them? Because, yes, there's a hint that you have different ages, Vikings and, different, human beings that end up on the island, right? Based on the skeleton remains and all of these things. And the fact that the guy who offed himself below in his cellar has some dead, people sitting around a table. But yeah, how far does it go back, right? Is it going back to the beginning of human history? Hmm? Right? What are the entities involved in actually doing this, and what's their purpose? You know, how did they get their powers? These are a few questions that are going to keep us up at night, eh? Now, there are a few theories towards those. Those questions are for you to answer. But the island's power source, right? Because these entities obviously have put the time and energy into creating an island, right? Whether it's actually on Earth or some kind of split dimension or something, right? They're able to manipulate it, right? And then they gave these benevolent gifts, right? So you're wondering what are the real motivations behind these things. Now, Walter's betrayal. Now, Brainwave, as you know him as Walter as well, seems to have been experimenting and covering up a lot of things. And it goes deep into how the union operates. So obviously, at some point, right, there's a particular scene in the movie where Walter and Sheldon are sitting down and they are talking after everything, right? After they get the powers and thing, and I say, it's almost like, what would we do next? What's the next step? It's almost like he has been positioning himself to basically take control, right? And it harkens back to that scene on the island where George even said, yeah, oh, he has a problem with relinquishing control, you know? So it makes a whole lot of sense now, at least for me, why all of this could be it. Now, obviously, there's, the ability to pass on things genetically, right? And so, obviously, you pass on some generational debts, curses, whatever you want to call it, to the current generation. And so, Chloe and Brandon now, having grown up, being trumpeted, having the code trumpeted into their ears every so often. You can't use your power for evil. You can't, you have to, you can't, they can't obviously stack things against others. You know what I'm saying? Don't use it to control, right? Obviously, you know what I'm saying? Maybe it's part of the corrupting influence, right? Because brainwave can basically get into people's minds. So probably got into Sheldon's mind and basically has been, using that, right? And without Sheldon had mentioned, say, oh, him can't get into his mind. Him smirk. Maybe because him knows say that is not true. He's able to get into his mind and he's already done it from the get-go, from the very moment that he got the powers, perhaps. And that leads to the rifts that we're having in the family with evening wife and all of that. Yeah. Now, Black Star's role in all of this might, at the end of everything, seem to kind of been downplayed, but it's not clear of his origins, right? But at least there is one thing that we can look at. It's the fact that there was many men on that boat near the island that got, you know what I'm saying? So even some of the supervillains that came up. Basically, they would have probably came out of that, All of them man, they were get blasted with some of the powers. Yeah, it's possible that they got it too, right? Not just those guys, not just the 6 guys, They got some of that radiation, some of that wave. hmm Maybe they're benevolent, or maybe they are playing a long game, just waiting for humanity to wipe itself out. Maybe it's all a test, giving them power and then seeing what they do with that power. Yeah. Share your favorite Jupiter legacy moments or theories. Drop them in the comments. In this episode, we looked at Jupiter's legacy. We looked at power, family, and the burden of heroism. We all know power corrupts, and they say absolute power corrupts absolutely. In a time when power is in the hands of those who would try to take liberty and freedom from others, it's important that we remember that the power is within the systems that have been put in place, and that it's important that we stand for what is good and what is right. Many of us might have a family, and many more of us are a part of a large family. But we need to look at ourselves as being a part of the greater family, the human race. We have strayed too far from the mark, forgetting that we all, beneath the surface, have goals and desires, and perhaps it is our hubris that has brought us to where we are. Thinking that, we are too great, too mighty. And maybe it is time for us to look at things in a different way, humble ourselves, and recognize what really matters. Most people want to be the hero of their own story, without understanding that what matters more is how people feel about us. And that is why it is so important that we stay connected. That is why it's important that we support one another where we can. Whether you're at home or abroad, just remember that everyone is going through it, whether it be at a small level or a high level, because that is the key to our future as the human species. And we ought to be very careful about who is in our heads. Is it us in our heads, or is it others? I leave that for you to ponder. Our quest through the universe of sci-fi television continues, and the next great milestone awaits. 2,000 downloads. Your support is the force that fuels this journey. Share, follow, and let your voice echo through the stars. Until we meet again, may wonder light your path, and curiosity be your guide. This content is CAN credentialed, which means you can report instances of harassment, abuse, or other harm on their hotline at 617-249-4255 or on their website at creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org.